Okay. Raise up a bit. We need a good target. Think. Okay. Wait. Fire! Looks like a direct hit. Move, move, move. We gotta go. We gotta go. You can't let the enemy team get the fucking one monster. We need that money. So go, 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 go. Why, I see you came back, partner. The wastelands of Dystopia. Well, welcome back to the monster hunt. There's plenty that still needs killed. So let's do it all over again. And Max Xeno Reborn. Though, honestly, I have no idea why they chose that name, because fuck, this game is a mess to me. Now, I am going to try and obviously be fair. There are some things they actually tried to address from the series, from the previous game, in this and that. There are some attempts at some interesting ideas. But overall, I do want to be quite honest, that I do feel like Reborn is an inferior experience compared to the original Xeno, which is why it completely flabbergasts me that Reborn is weighted higher than the original Xeno on Metacritic. Flabbergasted. But let's get into it, shall we? So, what is Reborn? If you're like me and you didn't know anything about either of these two games, you probably thought Reborn was just like many other games, an enhanced version with maybe some more content or something. Oh, no, 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 no. Outside the setting and the cast, it's practically a completely different fucking game. And that's barely. I mean, the cats themselves have some changes to their backstories and shit. But at its core, it's kinda the same story, except it's not. It's the same story basically not being told to you is more like it. So, there are differences in the story, but a lot of locations and everything are still the same in the same order, per se, you could say. Say. So let's get on. You, the main character, Tails, wake up in ruins, barely survived, and the whole intro for the original Xeno doesn't exist at all. Nothing about your mother, nothing about your mentor, who may or may not be your father, but it doesn't actually really tell you at all in the previous game. Not that I remember. You know, none of that fucking even happens at all. No mention of any of it. You just wake up in some ruins and you start. Now, they used the initial area, just like the first game, as like a bit of a tutorial. Now, combat is different in this. It has more of an MMO style aesthetic. Well, it still is essentially in turn-based, but it is using a more real-time, you can move around with kind of like Final Fantasy 12 lines and shit here and there, pointing out directions and stuff. It's not really crazy amazing to me. Some people might scream that it helps with realism, but like, honestly, at the end of the day, it just kind of makes everything look clunkier to me. Because this is a series that isn't renowned for being super refined, so it kind of feels weird to make a system that's more complicated, in my opinion. So, you are still dealing with a turn-based system, but you do have some advantages, like tank customization is way higher than it was in the original Xeno, where the original Xeno gave you limitations to some of the things you could do. Like, you could change a slot, per se, on a tank, but depending on which tank it is, it may limit what kind of things you can change that slot into instead of letting you change into everything. This one lets you literally do anything. You can make everything gun-based. You can make everything cannon-based. You can make everything SE-based. You can mix and match, so you don't have the limitations of the original game, which has its ups and downs. I argued in my previous review that the ups were a little bit more balancement, while the downs were, well, if you wanted to do something specific, you couldn't. But either way, you have way more power to fuck around with your tanks in this one. And like I said, you know, if you want to be like, see what kind of overpowered shit you can do with your tanks, that you can do that. So you have a lot more freedom to do what you want with the weapons. Engines have been changed a little bit. So, well, in the original game, you had 1 and 2 engines, and you could upgrade eventually or find tanks that had 2 engines and stuff. In this one, you have to get a special chip. So, chips have been changed up a bit in this one. So, you do still have all the usual chips, like the support, rush, different things that affect elemental things and such that were in the original game. But on top of that, they added, like, W engine chips. So, W engine chips take up 3 engines, chip slots to make your tank a double engine. So there's a few special chips like that can add a little bit more, so you can make, you know, good use of the double engines, because of course that helps gravely increase your fucking SP by a lot, which is very good, especially if you're gonna go tank and SE heavy on any of your tanks, because boy, that was really good, really good. There are also some new tanks introduced in this game that weren't in Xeno. Supposedly these were throwbacks to tanks in other entries of the series, like a bus. There was also a new dog companion. There's 2 new companions in this. The dog companion acts as its own slot, and then you also get 1 new character, which I'm not going to spoil here. We'll talk about that way later in the spoil section. But you do get 1 new character that wasn't part of the team in the previous game, but was in the game. So your dog companion does not take 1 of your 3 slots for your tank. So they are a perpetual 4th party member at all times. And the dog is very odd. As a ground unit in ground combat, very useful as you gear them up and level up those skills. And I'll go in skills in a second after I talk about companions here. But the dog companion can become a very powerful ally. Now, in tank fights, the dog is usually just going to get one-shotted for a long time until you get enough skill points that make it easier to survive. But overall, its really use in tank combat is like to lower the stats than do damage. It's a lot more useful in person, you know, humanoid combat, but still can have uses in tank fights later in the game. Like mine is at 73 at the end of my playthrough through this game. Now, in the original game, you had a job class system. You don't have that anymore. Instead, they've broken it up into a skill tree. Now, they basically took all those job classes and kind of made them their own skill trees, kinda. And everyone except for 3 characters have the exact same skill tree. You'll have drive, repair, medical, militia, and survive. And many of the abilities and things from the original Xeno's job class systems all buried in these. So if you're familiar with a lot of the abilities and things, a lot of those are in these. And you'll need skill points. You'll get a skill point on every level up. The characters that are different are your dog companion, Tails, and the new character. The new character's stats are just kind of all jumbled up differently. So it's not per se super different. It's just the way the order in the skill tree is very different. Tails gets a new skill tree that has to do with the arm. The vengeful left arm was a useful ability as a last-ditch way for him to do some damage to tank enemies if his tank was to ever blow up, or just do shitloads of damage to something in a non-tank fight. You can now do upgrades to your arm in this one, but that's at the sacrifice of the technology that was in the previous game that you could use to attach to your tanks and level them up. That no longer exists in this version. It's all about your arm. So, yeah, kinda bizarro on that. But you can get different elements attached to your arm, and obviously that gives you more uses of your arm. So, essentially, you can get a lot more of your vengeful attacks out there. Can be useful, but kind of a bit of a shame they like the technology, the Nethip technology from the previous game was an interesting idea that you could upgrade the unit and attach it to your tank, so it's kind of a strange sacrifice. But you have that on him, and then the dog. The dog has, well, the other two characters also, like, Tails still has access to drive, repair, medical, militia, and survive on top of his new tree. But the dog is completely different. A lot of the stuff the dog has is unique to the dog and involves adjusting its stats and such. Like, Dig allows the dog to find items in combat. Dog Aid allows it to heal party members, which I recommend getting that really high early on. That's actually really useful. It essentially turns your dog into a healer that costs nothing to heal you. Very useful. But I would recommend, like, focusing on things that give him health, defense, survivability, but the aid I would also focus on too. All very useful things. Gear-wise, you basically got the same system. You have a main and sub weapon that you can equip. If I remember correctly, normal Xeno was like 3 weapons, right? I think it was 3 weapons, so it's 1 weapon less that you can bring into combat. But you still can have 2 weapons on you. You have your hat, body, gloves, and boots. And now you can equip 2 accessories, which I think, was it 2 in the... Was it 2 or 1 in Xeno? Fuck, I forgot now. God damn it. I keep, like, mixing shit up that. Though your dog companion can only use 1. Everyone else can use 2. Now, something you may notice by this time is graphically the game looks really different from the original. Something you gotta keep in mind with the original was developed with Vita and PS4, so it had some limitations because of being on the Vita. This time they reworked everything, and it's a PS4, Switch, and PC game this time. And the weird thing is, graphically, there's a very mixed opinion on what's better and worse. It's an anime-style game, and it's just very odd looking to me in Reborn. I've seen some reviews saying, like, the graphics look better, but I don't see it. Like, they look so plasticky, like they're Barbie dolls or something. I don't really know what they did, because they used the original models of all the characters from the previous game, but they, like, changed the textures and shading and shit that's on them. Like, whatever they did to them, to me, looks fucking awful, to be quite honest. They just look like fucking weird Barbie dolls to me. It's so weird. Now, when it comes to the environment and the tanks, I think the tanks look fine. A lot of the environment looks pretty decently upgraded compared to the original. But at the same time, there's a number of weird downgrades, too. Like the desert. So at first, the desert, you know, is just, okay, it's a desert. It's not as noticeable in daylight, but at night, you're gonna notice that you can see lines that separate the sections of the desert. They did not naturally connect the territory. Now, you can see them in broad daylight, but you have to kind of look for them. But you can see where they don't match up, and they're just sitting side by side. It looks really amateur, but it's super noticeable at night. But once you start noticing it, it's just really fucking bothersome, because it just looks so weird, like somebody had taken a bunch of miscellaneous desert wugs and sat them all together with no cohesion to the lines and the way the waves of the sand are. It's really off-putting in the quote-unquote realism that a lot of people like to claim this version's good for. It is just kinda bizarro to me. Now, while other than the desert, like the physical environment of buildings and things are interesting. Like, for example, Iron Base is probably the most fucking upgraded building thing in the world. Well, in the original Xeno, the Iron Base in the library were just giant weird floating cube thingamabobs. Iron Base is legitimately a giant little facility thing. Kind of a nice upgrade, in my opinion. Because, like, the cube thing was just kind of weird. I think that was more because of the Vita's limitations, probably. And obviously, since the PS4 version is a pull of that, it just went with it. Now, something that I do have to give some credit towards with Reborn is the fact that they made several instances to get you to get out of your tank outside of dungeons. Getting outside of your tank in dungeon getting outside of your tank outside of dungeons in the original Xeno were rare and were usually absolutely safe. Probably one of the biggest scenes for it was the river area where you got out, climbed up the cliff, and got along the bridge and that. You just totally safe. It's just you wanting, collecting the treasure, and then getting back to your tank. No problems, no threats or anything. Reborn was designed with a few additions to need to get out of your tank to get some things, along with having enemies for you to fight in those instances. Plus, they even added a section where you had to go in the overworld, a new area that you hadn't been in, on foot, because you needed to get a key to open the door for your tanks to get into the area. While a brief and short and not super dangerous as long as you don't run into the wrong shit, I have to give some props in trying to make some more use out of your humanoid characters, because they just did not feel very meaningful in the original game. I mean, their real big need was to get their drive skill up. That helps boost the tank's stats up, and finding crap to improve the tanks. Them themselves weren't really necessary aside from allowing them to explore more. And it just kind of bothered me a little bit. I liked the concept of switching between the two, but it just felt like it was just not so meaningful as a person. Does Reborn fix that problem a lot? It doesn't completely fix it, but it definitely makes a better effort. Well, on top of having those kind of instances, dungeons are a little bit more necessary. Not completely, but they do have a much better place in Reborn. On top of all being unique. Each one is unique looking, with only one that bears the design of the original dungeon in the first Xeno. All the other ones were given facelifts and new designs, and all the dungeons are completely different. Not a single one is designed the same, layout. Like, they didn't, reskin the same dungeons. They're all completely revamped dungeons. On one hand, it's appreciated, because aesthetically, it's nice that they're all different. But functionality, they still at the end, overall, just places to explore for more crap for your team. But, like I said, it does feel a little bit more interesting, and you do still have to do the library. You do have to get the one key from the was a building. They actually removed the building dungeon you have to do near the end of Xeno for a key, and just made it some weird garden area. Still had the same boss, but it was kind of weird just to have that literally whipped out of the game, because that was actually a very interesting story thing that I felt like that was kind of not touched up on, and instead of going in more about it, they just whipped it out of the game along with tons of the other story. Feels kind of strange. Very, very strange. So, with the fact that they stripped out a lot of the story and stuff, you have to wonder how you meet many of the characters. They're pretty much met the same way they are in the original Xeno. There's not really much different in that regard, but you do have to recruit all of them in that. And it's pretty generally similar, with a little different on 2 of the characters, not counting the new character. Well, technically the dogs also has to get recruited too. You don't start with him. So technically you got 4 characters that are a little off how you got 2 of them. 2 new ones that you have to do things to get, and 2 old ones that have a little bit more to getting them to join you. Otherwise, most of the other characters just walk the same way. Now, you can miss characters. You can miss the characters. And similar to Xeno, I would tell you just to focus on whoever you want. There's not anything to really benefit from leveling literally everyone up unless you want to. It's pretty much meaningless and not necessary. That was a mistake I did in the original Xeno, and it's not one I made with Reborn, especially since, as I admitted, I consider this an inferior experience, so I wanted to get over with. And oh boy, we're gonna get into something weird about that way later. Now, at the beginning of the game, since there is no real overall plot being told to you unless you interact with the characters at Iron Base, which is pretty much the only real way to get a lot of the story out of this game, you're just kind of like told, that giant thing near Iron Base is going to blow us up. You need to destroy it. And yeah, when you leave Iron Base, you can see the fucking final boss just sitting there, staring at, menacingly doing nothing, which is just so fucking weird. Because you know, if it's Wheel of Threat, you think it'd just blow Iron Base up, or have a better excuse or something. It's just so bizarre. The final boss sits there the whole time you play through the game. And what's also funny, if you go near him, you'll find rubble you can blow up. And what's interesting is, once you get a strong enough gun, you can blow up that rubble and go towards him instead of going in through the map in the giant loop like you did in the original Xeno. You can actually just literally go straight up to him if you can get a gun powerful enough before then. And it's also fantastic if you plan on replaying the game or doing harder difficulties, because then you can go straight to him and cut all the BS of travel getting to him. It's pretty weird. But yeah, essentially, they designed the game to be a quote-unquote open-world sandbox kind of thing. Now, the world map did not take as much of a big difference as the original games. Some of the environmental stuff has been touched up, moved a little bit in that, but the general layout is the same. That the normal course leads you up north, then going to the left some, going down to the south, and going back to the whitish area, which would lead you to the port area that the final boss is sitting at. Now, just like the original game, they're all wanted monsters that populate the world. Unlike the original game, these wanted monsters will actually respawn. Well, they were a one-time playthrough thing in the original game, so you had to beat the final boss to basically get them all to respawn. In Reborn, they just respawn over time, and killing the boss does not trigger them to respawn. time still has to pass for them to respawn. It is a long time. I could not really figure out how long it took. It took a long time. To the point where if I wanted shit to respawn, I just literally just left the game on. Because I had no luck on fucking getting reasonably to fucking respawn. I do not know the time, or if it's even the same for all of them. It's really bonkers weird and shit, and I just found it easy to leave the fucking game on, basically at the point when I wanted to get stuff from them. Because farming the wanted monsters is useful. The technological leap system that you had in the original game doesn't exist the same way in this. There is a point where you do, quote-unquote, get new technology information, but it's treated as more like a story thing, not so much as a giant enhancement to your gear and that. So, essentially, to get new gear, you need parts. Just like the last game, parts, monster things and stuff that you get from drops, discovery, and finding different metals. These are all necessary for crafting and improving your tanks. And wanted monsters drop parts. And those parts can lead to you with some powerful ass weaponry. Definitely recommend hunting down wanted monsters when they're up. Because if you can get the right parts, you can get some powerful ass fucking guns, engines, and you can make mincemeat of shit in this game. But money, at that point, money becomes a problem. While I found several decent ways to get money in the original game, money at first seems really difficult in this game. By farming shit in that is a long and annoying process, and you will initially have a lot of money trouble. And I'm going to tell you something, a tip. It's up to you whether you want to use it or not, because it is technically cheating. But I would tell you, you will save a lot of yourself, a lot of annoyance, time in your real life, knowing this. There's a shop selling bug in this game. That's right. There's a way to make money with the shop. All you need to do, it works on most of the engines. Buy the engine, upgrade the engine, sell the engine. Now, you may want to save first and see which engines are profitable, because it doesn't work on every single engine, but most engines you can buy, upgrade, and then sell for a profit. That is stupid. How the developers left something like that in there is such a fucking newbie thing. I have not seen a game with a merchant bug like that in a long time. But I can tell you, it's kind of a godsend in this game, though, because once you get that, you're going to be able to upgrade your fucking tanks. All you need, just get all the parts, get them upgraded. Definitely recommend. Now, I did not make use of this bug until way near the end, so I don't think it really affects my, how should I say, the normal playthrough of the game. Because to be fair, if I had used it at the beginning, then I could see it been more a problem. So because of that, I did spend a lot of ungodful time farming and hunting down fucking wanted monsters. A pain in the ass, I tell you, not worth it. Not worth it. Just get the money and do the upgrades you need. It's not worth the time fucking wasting, in my opinion. Now, controlling your tank is also different, and I mentioned this in my Metal Max Xeno review. So, well, in the original Xeno, you just, point where you want to go, and your tank might awkwardly do a bit of a U-turn or something, but it'll go in that direction, and you had the option to hold the button down so you could turn around that. This one, you hold both R2 and L2, you can do the turning, and holding R2 forward, L2 backwards. And using your stick to control whether you go left or right. Do I like the system? No. I hate it. Actually, I really hate a lot of the control system. I don't know what they were thinking for some of it. Controlling your tank is not my personal preference, but that is the least annoying thing probably out of controls. The more annoying thing, in my opinion, is fucking combat. So, for combat, you need to hit triangle to bring up your combat menu. And you can go through your stuff. Select attack, select what you want to use. Then you aim in a first-person way at what you want. Select, and combat starts. If the target isn't immediately killed, combat will start, and you'll have two options. You can have the game in auto or non-auto mode. In non-auto mode, when somebody's turn comes up, the window will come up and you can put in no commands. Best recommended for hard enemies, hunts, and bosses. Auto mode is useful when you're just going through trash. Similar to the last game, a lot of regular monsters will usually get murdered really fast, especially if you're making your tanks very useful. So, auto is usually good for a lot of the regular enemies. But the reason this is annoying is because to initiate combat each time, you have to do the whole first-person thing, aim, and do that over and over again. I mentioned that was annoying in the original one, doing that system, but it didn't work the way it does in, like, you didn't go in the first person, you just kind of brought up menus, and you had to select the enemy. Far less annoying, honestly. I can tell you, it was annoying in the original Xeno. It only got more annoying. Don't know why they thought to do that. I think it would have just been way nicer for it to just automatically point at the enemy. That would have helped a lot more instead of just generically going in the first person and then having to get all aimed up and shit. It's very annoying. But what's also really fucking annoying? Items. I rarely used items, and I can tell you why I rarely used items. Because they are awful to use. You have to use them one at a time through this new real-time menu system. So you'll bring it up, go in your items, then you have to go through a list of 5 items at a time, find the item you want, select it, and use it. So if you're trying to mass heal somebody with multiple heal items, you gotta do that every single time. Very fucking annoying. Then, just like the last game, you do have skills where you can use your different skills, whether in your human or tank form, in combat. And you can switch tanks, so you can choose who you want to shoot to make the initial attack. Now, I don't like how they did the buttons, and it wouldn't be so bad if there was an option to change how the buttons work. Like, if you could change the buttons, I think it would be more possible to set up how you would like it. If you want to deal with how it is, or whether you want to customize a little. You can't change any of the fucking controls, so whether you like it or hate it, you're going to be stuck with it. So good luck having fun with that. Now, one of the reasons I don't really like the real-time combat thing is it generally makes all the combat just feel really dead to me. How so? Like, in the original game, you had basically short, medium, and long range combat. And you might be like, well, doesn't that still technically exist, technically? And I mean, in a way it does, but also in a way it doesn't. So while your initial gun shooting in that is controlled by the range, like if you're out of range of where it can shoot, it's not going to do much. But once you start combat, it seems kind of pointless. It doesn't seem to matter anymore. It just only seems to matter in the initial combat, which is bizarre. Very bizarre. Along with a weird instance where my characters were on foot in a dungeon, one of them got trapped behind a wall and was still actually able to participate in combat. So apparently it did not matter whether they were in or out of combat when it came to that. Very peculiar indeed. But the reason I bring up the range thing is there was a wanted monster named McDonald. My opinion, one of the harder bosses in the original Xeno, because it's a far distant fight, making most of your guns not something you can use in it. You have to massively change your tanks up for it. While there were other wanted monsters you also had to change up for, McDonald, in my opinion, is one of the ones you are almost guaranteed that you're going to have to change up your tank strats. McDonald is dog shit in this game. Because while the original game was a tour-based affair, you know, you go into combat, it's all tour-based to that, so they could set up the illusion that you're far distant. In this one, you just can drive right up to McDonald and just fucking start launching everything in its ass. It's just Willy blah. I don't know why they really thought the wheel time thing was so much better. Now, you might say, well, if you find the aiming in that really annoying in the game and that, is there any way for enemies to aggro you since it's a wheel time? And yes, enemies do aggro to you when you're near them. When you're in the line of sight, this little ball will charge very, very slowly to begin aggro. And honestly, if they had sped that up a lot more, like it was a lot faster for enemies to fucking get on you, like I think it would be probably really more better just to drive up to them while I'm aggro, but it's so slow and it's annoying. And man, I can tell you, when you're level grinding, or more likely trying to get items so you can sell, you're gonna really get annoyed. Because, like, just like hunted monsters, regular enemies also take time to respawn. Not as much as wanted monsters. So you go through areas really fast, kill everything, and just be like, wow, there's nothing around here. It can get really annoying clearing out the whole fucking world over and over again trying to get fucking items and shit. Now, there are chests, collectibles, with like the mine sweeping and that you can find. Metals, items, gear. So there's still things to explore in the world, and like I said, there are all places they made where you have to get on foot to go gather stuff with enemies, though, usually ants. They did the same to the tunnel dungeons. Now, for the tanks, they redesigned some of those and added ant tunnels that you can go into and find more treasure on foot. So, again, appreciate the idea of getting out of your tanks to get some stuff. That would probably been nicer to have more instances of getting out and, per se, doing some more meaningful things similar to the original game. Not a whole lot of unique things to be done. Overall, because of how the tanks give you a lot of customization ability, and the fact that there isn't the whole range system once wheel combat begins, it really makes it just really easy to stack really strong ass shit on your tank and just nuke the fuck out of enemies, even more than what it was in the original Xeno. Because to be fair, I pretty much did the same thing. Like, you know, I just set up really powerful shit and fucking just nuke the hell out of them. You're really more encouraged to do that in this one once you start getting your 3 tanks and you start getting SP higher bell engines and starting to have the ability to equip whatever the fuck you want, regardless of weight. And similarly, I did a similar strategy where I made the buggy like just heavy on Gatling guns for groups. And it worked out pretty fine. Actually, it's my, it's the better one for using for element type stuff anyway. Now, exploring is pretty much the same. You can fast travel to locations and things, so that aspect of the game has not changed. Again, considering some people point out to realism in this game, I kind of felt like the fast travel thing's not exactly a, you know, a realistic thing, if you get what I mean. And then you still have data for like your wanted monsters, be able to see which ones you've killed, where they are and stuff. You get information on their drops and stuff, so they do use basically all the enemies that you saw in the original Xeno. I can't really guarantee if there's any unique new ones much. Like, there are a few I did not encounter in the original Xeno, but many of them are the same monsters from Xeno. But there are a few that I didn't see in the original, so particularly there was a unique wanted monster that was a kind of a strange building thing, and they really changed up the Nethepetec cluster things, the cube things that you find in the later game. Well, in the storyline now, it was put that they will basically put there to guard the technology from the enemy. They just kind of come out of fucking nowhere in this one, so they don't really have that backstory to them, so it's kind of fucking weird. Now, something they did get rid of also was, if you remember correctly in the original, when you kill so many enemies, you would actually get rewarded stuff. Well, you no longer get that, but it does still keep track of how many enemies you've defeated, how many wanted monsters you've killed, EXP gained, total bounty, days survived, your max values on damages. So that stuff is still kept, but it's just still, you know, for informational purposes. You don't get new unlockable gear that way, so item-wise, there's a lot of stuff carried over from the original Xeno, but there are a few unique things that were added. I do feel like accessories were a lot more useful. Like, the feather items were like a complete joke in the original, and while they were still very minor in Reborn, they at least have more realistic uses to them, to be honest. But they're still not a gigantic thing, but I do feel they were a little bit more useful in Reborn than they were in the original. But they're both still pretty minor in the background. In general, who is this game for? It's certainly not for me. The story is practically non-existent in the game, and there's nothing really driving you forward. If you love hunting and murdering stuff, and you don't like JRPG stories, like, you're the type person like, shove, get me to the gameplay through all the stories and that, and you like just getting to the point, killing shit, you still have a lot of the fun tank customization, even though it has some differences of being a lot more open and not as limited, which again, like I said, you know, has some preference. Some people would like the full-on customization. Understandable. But having some limitations sometimes helps with the difficulty curve, because you can get really fucking powerful, really fucking fast with no limitations, and that certainly did happen to me in this game, and I will go into that a little bit more in the spoiler department, because it kind of has to involve with something that was kind of bizarro in my playthrough. But in general, if you are a JRPG fan that wants story and stuff, get the original Xeno. This game, to me, has a much smaller pool of people that are going to like it, appreciate it, and I feel like as time goes on, it is going to be hated way more than what Xeno apparently was. Admittedly, the Western media did not like the original Xeno, and to me, it's just weird that they liked this one more, because it feels even more cumbersome, weird with the controls and menus, and it's just, I don't know. They made a fair attempt at trying to do some ideas that was a weakness in the original Xeno, and I give them points on that. But overall, it just feels like it's a giant travesty When they could have spent all the time they put into this version to make a sequel or something, they did this, which made it feel like a waste of time. And as far as I can tell, when it comes to like reviews and shit, like other than like Metacritic, I mean, like as far as I can tell, Famitsu never gave a review for this game. I could not find a Famitsu score for this game. I could find one for the original Xeno, but not this one. And I can tell you, like, a lot of people, as far as I can tell, like, in the fan base, hated this game and were utterly confused by it. It is very, very bizarre. And I guess, to be fair, I kind of ignored probably something a lot of people also probably noticed way long ago by this time. The artwork. It looks awful to me. I think Tails is probably the one who... Tails has probably gotten away with it the most. The old mechanic guy really got beat up with the fucking ugly bat the worst, in my opinion. But the art style went with a weird kind of... I think they were trying to make a kind of a dark, realistic anime kind of look. You know, something like the GBA Castlevanias did. Or the original Xenoblade Chronicles. Like trying to add a little bit more realism into the anime style of that. But add a little bit more of a apocalyptic twist to it. But the more I look at the artwork, the more it looks awful on the scale of just the artwork. It looks terrible. Some of the characters are completely butchered, and like, it almost like, you ever see that the joke of the type of people making Western comics, like how they draw, or just don't understand how making a fun comic is. Like, I almost was to the point where I thought they hired somebody like that to do the artwork for this game. But when I looked up who did the artwork for this game, I was incredibly surprised. The artist who did Gravity Rush did the artwork for this game. Gravity Rush is a very nice looking game. Now, I don't know what any drawings they did look like of Gravity Rush, because I've only ever saw the 3D aspects of it. But they did the 2D artwork for the characters in this game. And I don't know if they were just paid $5 and told to make a bunch of shitty drawings real fast or something, but man, it just looks so fucking awful. And I get that's honestly subjective. I really get that. I really do. But I don't know anyone who likes this that's any kind of fan of any of the other entries. Like, generally, my research, people who like Reborn either A, don't like JRPGs, in other words, they don't like, you know, the story aspects of them, and because the story's basically gone, they just have the gameplay, and they're okay with that. Or B, they're the type of people that like the farming, hunting monster kind of cycle of gameplay. Other than that, I cannot find, like, I had no luck finding anyone who's a fan of this franchise and they like Reborn. I mean, hardcore Japanese fans didn't even like the original Xeno. A lot of them complained about it being too plain, and like, it's just, it's so weird to me. Like, I just don't understand why this game exists. I've looked and looked so hard to find interviews or anything related to this fucking game on why Reborn was made. Why? I just do not fucking know. It is confusing. Utterly confusing. And the only thing I could really come up with is I feel like it had to have come down to a development type thing. That there had to be some kind of disagreement with the direction of the game. Originally, in research, the concept of this story was supposed to be based off the canceled Dreamcast Millimax game, which was supposed to be revolving around a romance story. you know, it's the end of the world. This game has a little romance, just a little, not really a lot, but it was supposedly somewhat based off of that concept. I don't know what the direction of Reborn was. It's just confusing. But the developer of this was a company called 24 Frame Inc. I could not find anything they did ever outside of this game. They're like non-existent as far as I could find in research. Hey, this is Future Atticus talking now. I like to add a little further research about the developers. So I made some charts here and have found the website for 24 Frame. Their website lists supposedly everything they had any involvement in, and it does not list it does list Reborn. It does not list the original Xeno. And upon rewatching both the original Xeno and Reborn's credits, Katakal is listed in the original Xeno. They are not listed a single time in Reborn's credits. And I will tell you that there are a lot more people from 24 Frames that worked on Reborn. A good half of the credits is people from 24 Frame. So, indeed, 24 Frame did indeed do the majority of the work when it came to Reborn. Now, unlike what I said in my original recording that you may or may not have heard, depending on whether I edit it out or not, 24 Frame, as far as I understand, has had their hand to smaller capacities in the DS entries of the series. So, they weren't purely unique to just Reborn like I originally thought. But, of course, being that the majority of the franchise is in Japan, it's a little understandable that it was a little difficult to pinpoint all that with limited resources and that. But the charts should give you a time frame idea of what companies had any kind of involvement with each entry of the series. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, 24 Frame still was brought in to do the majority of the heavy work. Well, as far as I can tell, they were a very minor thing in all the other entries they had a hand in, so. But honestly, I really feel like this game was a travesty. They could have put all those resources to a sequel, improve on already existing ideas, but they just totally changed the franchise. Because aside from Metal Dogs and the mobile games, all of these are turn-based games, so they radically changed the way the game even is to the rest of the franchise. And it's just so weird to do that to a mainline game versus like a spin-off. Let alone rework a mainline game into this. Like, it's just... To me, my only conclusion, the limited research I could find in this, is there was some kind of disagreement. Now, Katakara was the owner of the franchise at the time. And if I remember correctly, the original owner, I think, was Data East. I think it was Data East was the original owner. Then I think there was a company before Katakara that owned it, and then Katakara got... Either it went from Data East to Katakara, or there was another company in between that. But Katakara is a very big company. We've talked about this before. They own FromSoft and many, many other things in anime, manga, and games. They own lots and lots of shit. My best guess is Katakara was not happy with how Xeno was received in Japan. America was probably just kind of not really care, honestly. Some people think America was an effect of this, because America didn't give it really good reviews. Shocking. Journalists in America giving great reviews to a JRPG. Who would have thought? Insert that X-Play picture. My best guess is Katakara was not happy. Like, I looked at Amazon reviews for this game. Japanese Amazon reviews for this game. And many of the reoccurring things were, it was too easy. They took away a lot of interesting ideas. Like, the best compliment was for the android lady's butt for being nice. Like, people were really harsh to it. Now, I don't really know much about the other entries. I don't know if Metal Max 4 on the 3DS had like some astoundingly complicated system that people liked. Because from what I understand, in the direction of what they were doing designing-wise through interviews with the original Xeno, is they wanted to go back to the basics. I think they wanted to try and make something for newer people. And, you know, this was my first time playing any of these. And I thought it was very interesting. Now, would I have felt different if I played the whole series up to this? Probably would not. Because from what I gathered from the reviews, they kind of simplified a lot of stuff. Now, is it bad to have a beginner's friendly entry? I don't think that's bad. I think that's something a lot of people in the JRPG space really take very harshly. Beginner-friendly entries. People have to start somewhere, and I think it's really, really bad to just automatically write off a game just because it's not necessarily hard as nails. I mean, look at Super Mario RPG Legend of the Seven Stars. That game is easy. Most people would tell you the only real jump in difficulty is around the sunken ship arc, and that's about it. Most people will tell you it's from there. It's pretty much, if you have RPG experience, you shouldn't have any trouble in that. But yeah, it's still held as a really great game because it's really fun and enjoyable. I think you can make a easy RPG experience and still have it be enjoyable. I feel like too many people are too harsh to say, oh, this game is super easy. Just because it's easy doesn't mean it's bad. If you're somebody who's still new to RPGs, that's a good thing. That could be something you can learn from that. I think Katakawa didn't like the sales and shit. Now, I believe all the entries Katakawa is involved with was the remake of 2 on the DS, 3, and 4, and Metal Dogs. Well, all the other entries that Katakawa was involved with. I believe the GBA one of 2 was done I think it was done by another company. That's why I think was, I do think there was another company between Data East and Katakawa, I believe. Because the GBA version of 2 was considered dog shit, buggy, and broken. And it's not worth getting from what I understand. And then the original on the Famicom and Super Famicom with 1, 2 with returns, which was a redone of the original, all by Data East. I feel like they were not satisfied with Xeno's sales or something. Again, this is all theory. But I feel like there was probably some content between Katakawa, the people who are the main leads of controlling and making Metal Max, and where the game to go forward. Now, they did announce a sequel for Metal Max Xeno, which was going to use the Reborn engine, and that was canceled. Reborn, my imagining is Reborn did so horrible in sales that they just canceled it and said, nah, we're not. And Katakawa sold the series to another company. And right now that company is supposedly making a Metal Max game, and I will be keeping my eye on that. Because I have became very infatuated with the series. I'm very interested. I found Xeno very interesting that I want to check out a series that's pretty much purely in Japanese, you know. Like, I guess that's a... Like, as of this recording, I actually have won a bid for the DS remake of 2 and a copy of Returns on the SNES or the Super Famicom. So, I almost got the whole franchise now in some form. I basically just need 4 on the 3DS and the 3DS Saga game. Oh wait, no, I think no, it was original DS. The Saga game was on the original DS. Metal Saga, and I'll have the whole series. Metal Saga on the DS won't be hard. It's not super expensive. 4 is going to be the one that's going to be hard because it is like fucking $200. It's crazy expensive, fucking crazy confusing to me. Anyway, at the end of the day, if you like classic turn-based, you want a story, and you want motive, get the original Xeno. I think it's better, both challenging combat and narratively. I feel like combat is dumbed down way more in Reborn. It's less interesting in my opinion, and you can become way more overpowered than you can in the original Xeno, especially if you use the money trick. And I didn't use the money trick until way late in the game. Like, I didn't know about it. And by late in the game, I mean when I was messing around with New Games Plus, basically. Like, during my blind playthrough, I did not know about it. Because what you're majorly watching outside of the gameplay, that's the intro beginning stuff that I usually show in all these, you're primarily going to be seeing a lot of gameplay that's also from my New Game Plus save file. But yeah, you can play both of them. They are both very different experiences, even though they have the same cast setting and stuff. The gameplay is very different. So there is a... You can have a justified reason to play both of them, but if you can only play one, get the original Xeno. I recommend it, especially more so because that is the one that's going to likely become harder to get. Because, and I mentioned this in my review of Xeno, they delisted the original Xeno. You cannot get that digitally. Meaning the physical version is the only way to play that now. And America only got PS4 version of it. So that means it will likely meet the similar fate of most of its own franchise, where it will probably go up in price. Because it is considered the better version in the fan base. Well, the Western market seemed to be the Western non-liking JRPG market generally seemed to only really like Reborn. And even then, it's still really niche. It's just, ugh. What a mess. What a mess. So, if you was to sit down and be like, I want to get Reborn, like I did. Because I decided to get Reborn play after Xeno, because I thought for the review process, it would be really interesting, because it was such a different game. Xeno came out for $40. Reborn came out for $40. As far as I know, that's its original price was $40. So it was not a full price game. So that's good. Personally, I don't think it's worth that at all. You might generally like, of course, I always do the value thing. What do I give it for value? The original game, I thought had lots of nice potential and value behind it. Reborn, even though it did a few interesting attempts to adjust some things and inject improvements into certain stuff, in general, I feel like at the cost of doing a few of those, it sacrificed the entirety of the game, basically. I give Metal Max Xeno Reborn an astounding $10. Yes, in my opinion, I give it $10. It's not necessarily that it's completely worthless to play. You can find some enjoyment. I think, in a way, if you play the original game, you want a little bit something different, you could play through this game. But it will be a very selective taste in that. A very selective taste. But at the end of the day, I don't think it's worth that much. It's a really short game in general. If you know what you're doing, you can make it way shorter. I mean, if I remember correctly, I think the average play time's about 20 hours in this game. And that's not super long. Not super long by any means. Now, of course, having no story, having pretty much all the freedom you have to go forward in that, you could easily speed run through shit as long as you can kill the shit that blocks you from going forward. Not really any problems. But yeah, at the end of the day, go get the original Xeno. Unless you hate JRPG stories, or you just really want to do the hunting of monsters, or if the combat looks more interesting to you. I'm not necessarily saying you can't enjoy the combat over turn-based, but to me, it feels less strategic, less interesting, and more spammy. But that's just my 2 cents. Don't let me stop you if you feel like it is more interesting to you. But that is my general opinion on that. I would only get for some extra playtime for like $10, really. And the game's not too hard to find inexpensive. You can find it around $20 or a little under sometimes. It's not very expensive. So it's generally not really hard to get. And I don't think Reborn's going to be hard to get anytime soon. It's still available digitally. And like I said, it didn't do so well. So I don't think it's going to become super expensive anytime soon, but I'm pretty sure original Xeno will eventually. Now, I would like to note one more thing. So this game is on PC, like I said. It's on PC, PS4, and Switch, unlike the original version, which was PS4 and Vita. It is interesting to note, I have never seen any game on Steam with this where it says you are required to play it with a controller. Keyboard and mouse is not supported. I have never seen a Steam game page have that before. Very odd to me. So, if you do want to check this out on fucking Steam, keep that in mind. Very, very in mind. Now, before we head into spoilers, I guess I should really go into what I haven't really mentioned at all, like bugs and things. I did not encounter anything that stopped me from being able to complete the game. Though there were these really weird instances sometimes where I couldn't do anything until I changed the load screen. I feel like this bug was triggered from doing actions in combat. Like some kind of time frame in between in and out combat caused something weird to happen with the menu buttons. I could still drive around, but I couldn't open the menu and shit. I had to like load into another screen area that to get to walk. It was a very bizarre bug, but it did not necessarily hinder me from completing the game. It just was very fucking annoying. Similar to the other version, they did have some bizarre problems with text. Like there are a few monster entries, for example, that don't have English text on them, where it was left in Japanese. There weren't too many terrible text issues in this version, but yeah, you can still find a few cases of hijinks, but definitely did not have as many problems as the original Xeno did in America. Now again, that's not necessarily a problem on the original development team, that's more of a localization problem. In general though, yeah, those are my thoughts on the game. So let's get into spoilers. So first thing, the grand reveal, the new character is the female android character. She joins your party, has a unique way of how her skill tree is, but from what I can tell, it's just the same skills jumbled up differently, so it's kind of weird. And she starts at level 1, so yeah, have fun with that. So let's talk about the weird thing. So I mentioned there was a weird thing that happened to me, but it's kind of spoiler related. And the reason for that is because it's related to the final boss. So let's go into this, because this is weird. So similar to the original game, in the original game there was a story scene that happened where you ran into the final boss, in a story segment and got your ass handed to you and were torn to iron base. That same scene happens in this game, but it's not a story scene, it's gameplay. And you can activate the boss and fight it. Now, when I was hunting down monsters and shit for money and stuff, it spawns in and out of the area that you encountered in the original Xeno. So sometimes it'll be there, sometimes it won't be there. It was there, and I decided to save and just fuck around, try it. So I fought it. It gave me a really useful item when I killed it. And I was like, oh, sweet. I could kill it, and it gave me a really powerful item. So I was like, well, fuck, I'm going to start farming him. So I go through, I made whatever, I think it was the engine. It drops a really good engine, but you can also get some weaponry too. But I think it was the engine that dropped. So I went through the game, killing shit, and then we spawned again. So I was like, sweet, kill it. Then it triggered the ending, which was a bunch of text and then a credit scroll, and that was it. Now, I was dumbfounded because I was just farming. So I open OBS and it's at the credits by the time I get the recording started. And I talk about what just happened and I tried to replicate it again. And I did. I did replicate it again. You can trigger the end of the game though. Now why it did it on the second fight, I don't know. Which leaves the question, is it intentional or was it an accident? I don't know. I can't find jack shit on whether it was meant to or not. But you can trigger the ending. And one part of me was like, I don't know, maybe there's a better ending for going to the normal area. But no, if you walk yourself all the way to the normal way of getting to him, it's the same thing. A little bit of text and then quit roll. Now, I did say the original Xeno ending wasn't exactly the greatest thing in the world, but it did its job. You got to talk to all the characters. They had a little, resolving of the issues and stuff, and they're like, there's a possible future for humanity now and stuff, and you and the mechanic decide to go out and still explore the world. The chick joins you, and the game's left off there. You don't get any of that. None of that. Nothing. No real close. You just get a bunch of, well, you've slain the monster, but there's still monsters. Quit roll. It's just, what the fuck? I went through all that for, probably one of the worst fucking endings I've seen in years. It's so garbage line terrible. Awful. Horrible. What a totally empty ending. And they wanted to make a sequel? Hell, they didn't even go in about his fucking arm. The only way to get anything about his arm is pretty much with the fucking mechanic. Other than that, the main character's arm is just kind of just fucking there. It doesn't really go into it very much. Unlike the original plot, which did have a lot of scenes revolving around, but at the end, it didn't really go in about anything about his arm. I felt like this would have been an opportunity to do more about that, but instead they did less. It's like, the fuck? And speaking of the mechanic, there are actually other endings in this, but none of them are any more satisfying. So, in the weirdest fucking thing, they made a system where you basically have relationships with all the characters. How that works, I don't know. I think it's just by talking to them over time, but I'm not really sure. So, every single character in Iron Base gives you an ending. These endings are garbage. There's two reasons. Half of them are fucking weird. All of them in the game. That's right. They just end the game. No final boss, no conclusion. It basically leaves oh, but hey, the boss is still alive. What became of humanity? We may never know. It's what the fuck? Now, some of them are weird. The librarian chick's basically let's get on! Chicka bow wow. Like, yeah. And I think most guys would probably mind that ending, probably. But yeah, some of the other endings are weird. Like with the android, like she will develop feelings for you, and you can basically get on with her with your metal arm, and you like mold together and shit. Like it's like what the fuck. Like it's just weird some of the shit that happens with the Kaidos. But yeah, there's apparently one with the mechanic where he becomes obsessed with your hand, and you spend the rest of your time at Iron Base with him tinkering around with it. It's just, yeah. What was the point of these? Like the game that, like, getting a relationship with one of the Kaidos is one thing. Like, hey, like you're getting it on with the librarian chick. Now you have even more reason to save the world. No, it's just, it ends. It's just game over. Now the game lets you load back into the game and shit, but it's just what was the meaningful point? And with the context that, you know, the original Xeno was built on the idea of a romance story that was the original idea of the canceled Dreamcast game, it really makes me wonder more about it, because like it feels like it's more of a spin the face to that concept. Because you think they would, if they wanted to stick to that kind of idea, they would have tried to build a relationship with some of the Kaidos and use that as like something to enhance the normal ending. Like, there you did, you killed the final boss, you got in a show dig with one of the Kaidos, now you have more reason to care about the world and might have a child and shit like that, you know. Like, it's just weird. Like, the whole game just feels like a spit in the face in the original game, in my opinion. But yeah, I don't have a very strong opinion of this game. There are some people who really, really liked it. I watched some people's reviews of it. There are people who like it. I always say that there's always a fan for every game, no matter how hated it is. Like I said, I could see some people being interested in it, but I think it's a spin in the franchise's face, and it almost seems like it almost killed the franchise, to be honest. But luckily, they sold it to another company, and that company's making a new game, and the guy who's behind Metal Max is working on that, as far as I can tell. So it'll be interesting to see what the new Metal Max is like. Because if it's more like the rest of the series, then I think my theory about Katakawa trying to fucking basically manhandle the franchise away from the developers probably has some more truth to it. But if it goes in more of the direction of how Reborn and such is, then it could very well be possible the developer had some leaning into the concept itself too. But we'll see what happens. I think it's more likely it's going to be more faithful. Because, I mean, why would you buy this franchise? Look at how, like, this ended and be like, yeah, we need to do more of that. So, I'm looking forward to see where it turns out. But, with that, that is my incredibly long-ass rant about Metal Max Xeno Reborn. I know this and the original were very long reviews, but these are both very unusual JRPGs with a lot of bizarro mechanics outside the normal stuff of a normal JRPG. So, and this one just has a lot of fucking shit on top of it. So, but anyway, if you feel like you learned anything interesting, feel free to leave a like. If you feel like you learned nothing at all, feel free to leave a like too. Guilt-free, and until next time, I'll see you out there in that wasteland, and maybe one day we'll revisit this wasteland hellscape that is Metal Max one day. Until then, be safe, load in your tank, and ride in that sunset with no shame in your heart. Until another day, we'll hope to see Metal Max here at the Proving Grounds again.